Welcome, and thank you for attending Cascading Absences, What We Did to Neutralize Murphy's Law. I am Jennifer Matthews, Collection Strategy Librarian, and my co-presenter is Christine Davidian, E-Resources and Serials Librarian. We are both from Rowan University Libraries. Rowan University is located in Glassboro, New Jersey, about 25 minutes east of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and is rapidly growing R2 Carnegie classification institution. It began in 1923 as a normal school and became a university in 1992 when Henry Rowan donated $100 million to the institution, which was the most significant personal gift to a university at that time. Between 2012 through 2013, the university greatly expanded by adding 2 disparate medical schools, an allopathic medical school, Cooper Medical School at Rowan University, and an osteopathic medical school, Rowan School of Osteopathic Medicine. Rowan was recently named the 3rd fastest growing public research university in the United States by the Chronicle of Higher Education. Rowan will also be adding the first ever veterinary school to the state of New Jersey, with its first class matriculating in the fall of 2025. Perhaps the most significant change for the Rowan University libraries in the next year will be the major renovation of Campbell Library, which is the main campus library located in Glassboro. Planning has been underway for well over a year, and because the renovation includes major infrastructure updates to HVAC, electric, broadband, etc., both the collections and the staff will have to be out of the building for a period of at least 6 weeks once construction begins. The complete renovation is expected to last 1 year, though we all know that these projects can take on a life of their own once they begin, and also include a lot of pre-planning and logistics to be successful.
In 2022, despite the fact that our library was not staffed at a level necessary to support an institution of Rowan's size of 19,000 FTEs, the collection management department was considered to be fully staffed. For example, all 4 employees in the e-resources team were working at that time, but had no wiggle room for coverage, meaning that other than e-resources related resolution of technical support issues, our responsibilities did not overlap. No one person could take over this colleague's responsibilities without training. However, the collection management team experienced other absences as we approached winter of 2022 and spring of 2023. During that semester, a couple of colleagues were out of the office for maternity leave, and several individuals were out intermittently for COVID-19, vacation, and random longer-term illnesses, leaving the team quite understaffed. This trend lasted into summer 2023. As of fall 2023, the group is back to 100% staffed, and we are now preparing for the next what if. To provide some background, each employee has a specific set of job responsibilities. Our organization does not have multiple employees who overlap in same responsibilities. There may be some overlap, but not necessarily in all areas, so that if one staff member would be out of the office for a period of time, someone else could automatically step in. Backup is not necessarily built in. 2 expectations on our part are that we assume that a staff member would be absent for a short period of time, such as be out sick for a few days or be on vacation. We also assume that a single person would be out for a specific period of time, not that multiple people would be out for unpredictable periods of time. The documentation for procedures that we had did not necessarily cover all possible contingencies. Some of our assumptions in planning for absences in the abstract were that there was a general need for cross-training, and we cross-trained for some tasks or responsibilities. We had assumed that only a single person would be out for any given period of time. It would be a strain, but doable for remaining staff to take on the responsibilities of one person. Before our colleagues were on leave, we were aware that multiple people would be out, which meant that it would be even more difficult to take on work of several people, but we did not know by how much. We had never run into such a situation before. In reality, it was a moot point because it wasn't discretionary. It was going to happen no matter what. What ended up happening in terms of how work was divided and what work was put on hold follows. We ensured that all staff members had access to shared email accounts so that any colleague could pick up a project, support issue, or vendor ticket at any stage of the process if necessary. We also made sure that everyone had proper access and permissions to the shared Google Drives where we stored documents for procedures. Also, all collection management staff had access to the technical support ticket system to ensure that multiple people could respond and resolve support tickets as needed. Collection management decided collectively to prioritize and work on the most urgent and visible issues first. The department documented issues that could wait and that needed investigation, such as book collections migrating to new vendors, the status of certain print titles, whether they were canceled or missing, or even the reason for a certain status being assigned to a collection. If we didn't understand why something was structured in a certain way, we documented it. We didn't assume it was incorrectly configured by an absent colleague. So, what happened when people on leave returned to work was that each time a colleague returned from a long-term leave of absence, they attended two types of debriefing meetings. The first was a staff meeting to bring colleagues up to speed on the developments or changes at work and any administrative changes that had occurred or new general changes that had taken place while colleagues were on leave. The second type of debriefing meeting was to review the status of the employees' projects that others could have worked on during their absence. The information gathered from this second type resulted in reviewing and reevaluating projects, updating documentation, and most importantly, updating of goals.
Since there were multiple team members absent in various areas throughout the fall of 2022 through the summer of 2023, the technical services areas and others, the collection management division supervisors met to determine what the next steps would be. The group includes Christine, me, and John Gyrus, the technology services librarian, to accomplish some initial brainstorming on how the three teams could assist each other during this period. The staff coverage issue was also mentioned briefly during the monthly library supervisors meeting, which is an opportunity for all of the supervisors in the library to discuss shared issues with the Rowan University Library Administration. It was agreed that more would need to be done throughout the collection management teams to aid with the positions that were absent during the spring and summer terms. Next, Christine, John, and I met both as a group and individually with our teams to discuss how the coverage would work moving forward. We each explained that the teams would be lending support to the electronic resources and services team, which was particularly hardest hit with absences, and that while this was a temporary solution, it could also provide some insight into how collection management would complete some processes with new eyes on these projects. Following these group and individual meetings, the supervisors met with library leadership to make them aware of the progress of the information sessions and any known issues that had arisen. Generally, the collection management teams were very receptive to the idea of helping each other out. However, as expected, the new eyes on existing projects did uncover problems with a few existing projects that created either workflow issues or larger issues, which we will discuss shortly. As these problems arose, they were triaged and prioritized accordingly. Overall, the collection management team really stepped up and helped out during the staffing shortage, and they have continued to do so as we have learned about future staffing issues going into fall 2023. Preparing for this talk, the supervisors met with the team to discuss what worked well and what did not, and for the group as a whole. And they felt that everyone was surprised that our baseline of where services should be were not what we expected. There was also agreement that to counter this, all standard operating procedure documents should be updated. The culture of the last few months, and maybe even since 2012-2013, when Rowan University added the 2 medical schools, has been, what is the latest fire that needs to be put out for the collection management team? This is not a sustainable culture for this team, and instead, it needs to try to pivot to a model of preparation for need. Part of this is due to the huge amount of growth on the part of the university and the limited staff in this area of the library. But part of this is also just the way this area of the library has traditionally worked over many years. As the discussion with the team progressed, many agreed that union agreements and the lack of a shared project management system actually hurt the team, and more needed to be done there to facilitate shared ownership of projects and cooperation. The collection management team tends to be a change management leader in the library, so I think many of the team members were surprised that this was an area that was lacking overall after reflection of several months. Additionally, team members felt that more transparency was needed between and among departments as well as individuals in collection management through updated progress documents, shared communication tools such as Slack, shared progress reports in different mediums than just a collective meeting, that he preferred more frequent informal check-ins, for instance, and more pre-leave documentation. For instance, if someone knows they will be out for a period of time, they work with other team members to ensure that they know what elements of their job they would be responsible for, the steps entailed, where they left off, who to ask for help, etc. The team members covering would also have a follow-up documentation for the returning team member that illustrates where they left off, issues they had, projects completed, etc.
Our recommendations for the next time unexpected long-term absences happen are the following. Pre-leave, we recommend constructing a temporary offboarding document listing responsibilities that need to be taken over and those that don't. Ensure that the leave-taking employee's responsibilities are identified. These should be in the employee's job description or annual review document and be up to date. Ensure that the employee documents procedures that need to be undertaken during their leave period. Next, the supervisor and colleague to take on specific responsibilities. Meet with the employee to identify responsibilities that must be carried out and those that are optional or not necessary to do during the leave period. The supervisor or employee will designate who will be responsible for what tasks. If at all possible, the person who will take over a specific responsibility while a colleague is out on leave should be trained and should be given documentation to refer to, should shadow the temporarily absent colleague on the job for the specific task before the planned absence, should perform the actual task for a full week or more in order to be able to ask questions. This functions as a stress test in anticipation of the eventual stress. Despite our best efforts, due to intermittent absences and overwhelming workload, the shadowing and stress tests have unfortunately not happened. We also recommend identifying policies regarding who to contact internally and external to the organization for questions in the leave-taking person's absence. As an example, while I am out of the office, a designated colleague will be responsible for completing journal package renewals. She knows the colleague to contact at the library and at the subscription agent's end to obtain answers and complete orders. She's been trained in the procedures needed to accomplish this. Based on the multiple absences that occurred simultaneously this year, we envision cross-training several colleagues on each job responsibility than we expected to need to train in the past. We no longer limit training to a single person who's designated to function as a colleague's backup. Our objective is for us all to be Jack or Jackies of all trades as much as possible. Due to staffing shortages, we have not had the opportunity to implement this completely. During the leave period, we recommend the following. In addition to updating all documents to show the status of projects, we created a Google Doc that summarized all important issues or changes that occurred while the staff member was on leave. While the person on leave had received many emails from colleagues during their absence, each email did not provide the big picture, and this would force the employee returning from leave to spend time catching up on emails and communicating with colleagues to get a full picture. Also, some people did not send emails to the absentee colleague on leave, as employees are prohibited from communicating with colleagues when they are on leave. The collection of comments in the Google Doc did give the big picture, provided context, and functioned as a debriefing for what the returning employee needed to know to get up to speed upon their return. The document included problems that had occurred and whether or not we had resolved them, or any major issues that had been corrected. Any changes in personnel-related policies, such as flexible or hybrid work arrangements, changes that had occurred in procedures concerning their responsibilities were also included. Our post-leave recommendations include that you plan for reboarding, similar to onboarding. Expect that employees returning from months-long leave need time to catch up on emails and prioritize their responsibilities that need the most attention. Plan one or more debriefings as needed. During these sessions, review the unexpected issues that came up during the person's absence that were recorded in the shared Google Doc in order to keep track of all changes in one place. As mentioned earlier, it's not reasonable to expect a returning employee to retain every detail of every issue communicated in emails. If necessary, meet with the returning employee individually or in a group for goal setting and reorientation. And then finally, review and possibly revise workflows. While colleagues were on leave, other colleagues who carried out some of their responsibilities could have had different perspectives on workflows and provided some insightful suggestions on how to improve workflows. Include or involve the person who was on leave as well as those making suggestions. The suggestions could lead to actual improvements, or there could possibly have been a valid reason that workflows were implemented the way they had been. And it could just be that these reasons were not documented or well known by those involved. Our lessons learned include documenting more thoroughly, frequently, and earlier. Since each of us in collection management has been impacted by this issue, what we learned is to document procedures as soon as we start a new process or change it in some way as we go along. There's really no right time to document. If part of a procedure changes, document it immediately because you don't know who or when your next backup will be. Also, communicate more frequently, even if the communication is short and sweet. Transparency is key. Incorporating all of these non-urgent but necessary practices into our work assumes that there's adequate time available to implement them. There is a need to create time to document and communicate. That's what is challenging. Thanks for attending. Our contact information is here, and we welcome any questions you may have.